This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show. Scarecrows frightened of a clown that's laughing, boys. I am a Batman.
Hey everybody, this is Dublin Dane, a special episode of Dublin Dane.
Maybe you should call it the Dublin Dane.
Oh, the Dublin Dane. Yeah, maybe I should, maybe I should. This is the Dublin Dane. And with me as always is Tim. Tim, how are you doing? Tim from, let's say, what's another international city?
One that was featured in a video game as well. Where they make fun of you.
How about Seattle Tim?
Seattle Tim, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, for The Last of Us Part 2 that takes place in Seattle. So there you go, Tim. Seattle Tim.
Fine with me. I mean, where the greatest bit of music was born from. So Seattle Grand Rock. So I'm totally cool with that.
But let's just cut right to the chase, Tim. I'm just gonna hand it over to you. Everybody knows what we're gonna be talking about. So Tim, just go crazy.
All right. Yeah. Yes. Let's both go crazy. It's here. I mean, 10 years later, we finally got a new solo live-action Batman movie, and kind of hard to believe that it is here. It was, as we kind of talked about on the last episode, as we were sharing our excitement level for the Batman and just kind of the road that it took to get here from different directors, actors, story ideas, and all that. And now we finally got a brand new Batman movie. So we're obviously going to be talking about it, diving into everything about it. So we're throw out the spoiler warning right now in case you haven't seen the movie yet, but hopefully you have if you're listening to this episode already. So yeah, let's get into it. And as always, kind of like to do our first general reactions after we came out of the theater to kind of give a gauge of what we were feeling like right after we saw the movie before diving in. So I guess I'll just start off by saying, I mean, I'm just going to say it right now. Let's get out of the way. No build up, but I left the theater not loving it like I was hoping to. And part of that, I think, is because I hate to say it, but having those fan screenings a few days earlier and even like the reviews that came out the day before that, man, the praise the movie was getting and the hype for it was just like blowing me away. Obviously, I was excited for it, but the reaction that I was getting actually took me by surprise. Like, people calling it the greatest Batman movie ever. It tops The Dark Knight. I mean, one of the best superhero movies ever. And that was just getting me even more excited and pumped up for it. But sad to say, when I came out of the theater on the Thursday night, I came out really enjoying it. I liked it. And I don't want anyone to think that I did not like the movie, because that's not what I'm trying to say. I just did not come out of it absolutely loving it that I know so many others have and that I was hoping to. So, it's kind of, I don't want to call it like I left disappointed, but it was like not disappointing in the movie, but disappointed in how I felt afterwards, if that makes any sense. But it was a Batman movie like no other, which was great. It delivered on being, first and foremost, a great detective crime mystery story, and it did that beautifully. And I was so happy about that. But at the same time, there's just that type of, I guess, and again, we'll go into it in more detail, but when it was all said and done, I guess that type of Batman movie and story, when it played out as a whole, it just, didn't reach that top level, like a top tier level, like The Dark Knight did for me. And I guess I'll say this too. I'll try not to make too many comparisons to this until The Dark Knight or the Dark Knight trilogy as a whole. I don't want to be an exact comparison, say, well, The Dark Knight did this better, or this should have been done like that, because I do not want to do that. I just want to look at this movie as it is by itself. So, but yeah, my general thoughts was I just really enjoyed it, but just didn't quite leave the theater as I was hoping I would, thinking, man, this saw like some truly great and special Batman movie. And I will say that could change on multiple viewings. I've only seen it once. And I think that is something where, now that I know what type of movie it is and how it's paced and how it flows and the story beats, it's something that I think I could probably just sit back, relax, and appreciate more on a second viewing. I don't know if it'll kind of move up in the rankings as far as where I place it in other Batman movies, but it was a movie that I couldn't stop, even though, like I said, I didn't come out of it absolutely loving it. I could not stop thinking about it the next day afterwards, all day at work, all day, like on the drive home. And it was funny because I was thinking about the movie, not necessarily like reasons why it didn't reach that high level for me, but I just kept thinking, man, they did that good. That was great. Like, I like what they did here. I thought to myself, man, why did I leave the theater not feeling like I absolutely loved it? So it was like kind of a weird feeling thinking about the day afterwards. So, because it was kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly the reasons why I didn't necessarily love it. And there is some story things I wish they did more or dive deeper into, which we'll get into. But it's one of those things where I don't want to compare it to how I felt after The Last Jedi, because that was such a weird experience seeing the day after seeing that movie, because I could pinpoint exactly the things I was kind of iffy on and weren't sitting right for me after that first viewing. But this one is kind of different, where there is not that exact moment. It's just how the movie is in itself that is making me like not exactly pinpoint exact details, but just how it is as a whole, where it just didn't quite reach that top tier level for me just yet. So that's kind of where I stand on it right now. But again, I'm looking forward to talking about it with you, Dane, and just talking about certain points that I think even just discussing it and having some fun discourse on it might make me see things a little differently. And like I said, looking forward to seeing it again, which we'll see if that makes the experience move the needle a little bit more to that top tier level Batman experience for me. But we'll see. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It's a really good movie. Again, I don't want it to sound like I hated it or did not like it. It was just maybe something where I should have kept my expectations in check just a little bit.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it while you were talking, and like how people are saying like, oh, which one is better? Is The Dark Knight better, or is Batman better? Does Marvel have a version of that where it's like, oh, is it better than, I don't know, Civil War?
Well, I guess, I mean, amongst the MCU, I think the biggest ones could probably be like the Avengers movies, comparing those with each other. Sure. But again, like they're all part of the same story. The only thing that I think you can't compare it to is the Spider-Man films, because you've had previous Spider-Man movies in different universe with different actors and all that type of stuff. So I know the MCU Spider-Man films always get compared to the Tobey Maguire films. So maybe that's the only thing you can do. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to, I think, make that comparison with the MCU and the Batman one, since the MCU is its own contained thing with not any other comparisons of those characters in other universes other than Spider-Man and maybe Hulk. But with Batman, you got so many different ones, so you're obviously going to get so much more comparisons with them.
My first impression after I saw it was the total opposite of yours, Tim. It sounded like you were a little iffy on certain things. Coming out of the theater at 10 o'clock or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was after 10, that's for sure.
Yeah. I was like, wow, they really did it. They really made a great Batman movie, especially after we got Justice League and the Snyder Cut. And Batman versus Superman, where it's just like these awful, awful movies about nothing really at all.
Oh, I wouldn't go
And then,
that far, but I know you don't like those movies,
well,
Dave. But
well, 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 let me finish my point.
I'm sorry.
Um, yeah, like you just have these awful movies. They're just trying to eke out a little bit of that Marvel magic, right? And then you have something like this, which is what seems to be DC's or Warner Brothers um, strong suit, I guess you could say, where you have these unique movies that just are so unlike the Marvel movies, and that is the Warner Brothers slash DC strength. You can't rip off the Marvel universe. It's too big. It's too popular. You just can't do it. And with this movie, I I was really, really amazed at how and surprised, to be honest, how complex, right? And you got to say epic it was, without being like a Marvel movie where there's just a huge CGI cartoon battle that has to happen that lasts 45 minutes. And I'm sure as soon as we're done recording this, we're going to be like, that's what that was, or I should have mentioned that, or
Yeah.
whatever, Um, and again, it's unlike Marvel in the sense where it's like, I mean, except for that last scene, which we'll get to, right? It's not that, I saw, I don't know, white hair. If you really zoom in and pause it at a certain point, and I think I saw some rain clouds, so Storm is going to be in the next movie, right? And this is actually the fourth movie, but there's going to be 18. But we're starting off with the fourth. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 5, and then 6, 7, and then we're going to go back to 1. And it's like it isn't that it isn't epic, and it isn't grand, and it isn't complex in that sense. And that was my first impression right off the bat, was like, wow, they truly packed so much into this 1 3-hour movie, but not in the sense of like, we're planning this for the next 10 years, or we are trying to rip off the Marvel universe. It's a contained movie. If there wasn't a sequel to this, it's a contained movie.
Yeah.
And everything connects to everything, and it's not connecting to anything else outside of it. And even though it's a contained movie, that doesn't mean it's not that doesn't mean it's just a straightforward story. There's so much going on underneath that truly makes up for that huge CGI cartoon battles that we were getting. And yeah, that was my first impression of the movie when I walked out. I absolutely loved it. I can't believe they pulled it off. Really, I can't believe Matt Reeves pulled it off, or all the actors. Robert Pattinson was great. He's a great Batman. He's a different kind of Batman. He's a different kind of Bruce Wayne, a very different kind of Bruce Wayne. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I mean, she is Catwoman. She is Selena Kyle. I can't see any different now. I mean, I know everybody was like, "Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer is the greatest Catwoman," and she is, right? But I think Zoe Kravitz is really, she did a really good job. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of had a feeling you were going to absolutely love this movie, Dane. And like your reaction is what I've seen from pretty much everybody. I really feel like I'm in like my own little corner where I didn't absolutely love it, and like everyone else seems to be. And I'm like, why is that for me? But I just can't change how I felt after leaving the theater that night, but I'm so glad you had that reaction. Everyone else is, but I just kind of it's
Yeah.
makes it more puzzling to me. It's like why didn't I feel that way? But
Well, I
again,
mean, I think the other thing too for me was like I it really surprised me how original it was. You know,
mhm,
just like the little things like the narration or the story or
yeah,
you know the fact that the movie was really director driven.
mhm,
You know, it feels like Matt Reeves really put himself in the movie, right? It really feels like he really cared about it. But then, like I was saying before, you look back on a movie like The Joker, I can see how it seems like. I mean, DC is taking a different approach with these movies. It's like a blockbuster, but it's also like an indie movie. You know what I
yeah, I
mean?
totally get that. Yeah,
And it's like they've struck that right balance between we're going to do an indie movie and it's going to be director driven and story driven, but it's going to be a blockbuster superhero movie, and we have to do the blockbuster superhero movie stuff, right? But that's what really surprised me was how uh, the uniqueness of this director driven style of movie, whereas like you look at the Marvel movies and you can tell that the director doesn't really have a say on what goes on or the fight scenes or the story or how it's shot, or how it's lit. You're just there to say action, right?
I think that
And
varies from movie to movie. But go on.
well, I don't know, that's just the way it seems to me, and it works for them because they have this homogenous sort of huge universe that they're doing, and everything looks exactly the same. There's no difference between directors. Like you look at something like, I mean, I know it doesn't really work in the long run, and I'm sure you can poke holes in it, Tim. But like you look at The Dark Knight, right, and the vision that Christopher Nolan had, that clean, slick look, and you look at something like this or The Joker, and everything is dirty and it's grimy and it's dark and it's it every sort of thing looks different. Every single movie looks different, and th- that's another thing that really surprised me was how unique it was, and I think that's DC's strong suit. Like I was saying, is like they have to do these kind of things where it's like you can't do the Marvel stuff. You got to do this. You got to do this indie in indie esque movies, right? Where it has a unique look, it has a unique story, and it has like a unique director attached to it, and a unique writer. Yeah, I think that's their strong suit, and that's why I loved it. It's original, it looks different, and yeah, I just loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with having its own unique feel and look because even when we saw that first trailer and hearing Matt Reeves talking about it, having it be grounded, be kind of even more so than the Nolan trilogy did, and I was thinking how we talked about it before, how different like is it going to be from Christopher Nolan's movie if he's trying to go for that grounded, reality-based Batman type story, and even in the trailer, I thought it looked different, but also some similarities as well. But when you see the whole movie in itself, it is its own type of Batman movie. I think there's some similarities you can make with that whole grounded reality aspect of the Dark Knight trilogy, but Matt Reeves did a great job of still making it his own vision and its own look because it did look and feel like a Batman movie we haven't seen before, and that was really great. But yeah, let's kind of dive into some of the specifics and let's just go into the beginning and just the character performances from this cast. And obviously, we'll start right off the bat with the Batman himself, Robert Pattinson, and kind of talking about Batman and as well as how the opening of the movie, not the very, very opening with the murder of the mayor by the Riddler, but kind of the introduction to Batman. This was a fantastic introduction to Batman. This is one of the things where the more I've been thinking about it, is like this is like Matt Reeves did a really great job about introducing this Batman to us with the story. And you mentioned it, Dane, the narration, the monologue. I mean, it felt like you were just opening the first few pages of a new Batman comic or graphic novel, and you're reading like the word balloons of the inner monologue of Batman as he's kind of introducing you into this version of Gotham for the first time, and talking about how he's been doing this for 2 years, and just how he's kind of like walking among the criminals, picking his targets carefully. All that was just fantastic. And you haven't even seen Batman yet, and you got Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne Batman narrating it. You hear the Batman theme kind of build and build as we're being introduced. We're seeing crimes take place at different spots of Gotham, and you're wondering where Batman's going to show up. And then you see, and he talks about the bat signal being lit up, and how it's being used not only for something to call Batman, but also as like a warning sign to the criminals. And you see the effect it has on them as they're running away, kind of getting themselves caught or hurt without Batman even showing up, was just fantastic. And until we finally get to that moment where that was so brilliantly introduced to us in the first trailer, with Batman taking on that gang in the subway and just beating down on them, and then saying that now I think iconic line, "I am vengeance," which plays a pretty big role in the movie up until the end, which is something I know we're going to get into. But just the introduction to Batman in this movie was so well done. It's, again, we're probably gonna be saying this a lot, but so done so differently, but it worked so well. It was just, again, a way I wasn't expecting for Batman to be introduced, and taking pages from comic books, that not a specific story in this case, but just how Batman has been introduced in different comic stories. It was like brought to the screen so perfectly and beautifully, like you were seeing a comic brought to life with the monologue, the visuals that you were seeing. It was just really an incredible way to introduce this version of Batman. And Robert Pattinson, yeah, he was great. I kind of said before, over the course of like a couple of years where we found out he was cast as Batman, how I'd never seen any movie with Robert Pattinson in it. So obviously I couldn't like judge I reserve judgment from kind of giving any reaction to his casting when it was first announced. I trusted Matt Reeves. We've been down this road before with people overreacting as far as casting choices they don't think is going to work, and then they end up being proven wrong. That's happened time and time again. I knew this is going to be the case with Robert Pattinson. But I also said too, I don't know if you remember, Dane, but I kind of, having not seen any Robert Pattinson movies, I didn't want to see any movies with him in it leading up to the Batman, because I wanted this to be my first movie to see Robert Pattinson in, and just have it be like I'm seeing this version of Bruce Wayne for the first time, not associating the actor's performance with any other previous roles into this. I was like, went into it just seeing this new version of Batman, and without having any previous knowledge of Robert Pattinson's roles or even acting abilities. I know he's been praised as being a great actor, and that was on full display here. He absolutely nailed it. Like you said, it was a different type of Batman, but again, it's still Batman that we all know and love in this movie. And the thing that surprised me too was, which was a really cool aspect of the movie, I mean, it's titled The Batman, and we definitely got the Batman in this movie more so than any other live action film. I mean, there was maybe 3 or 4 scenes where he's just Bruce Wayne, but the majority of it, he is Batman throughout every scene he was in pretty much. And that was awesome to get. And I heard about this being described by both Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves going into it, how for this version, they really are not making much of a separation between Bruce and Batman like we've seen in previous movies, where he's the billionaire playboy putting on that act. And this one, it's just pretty much Batman and Bruce are the same. And we've seen that take in other stories before, and I enjoy seeing that in this movie as well. Just him not making that separation just yet, where he's just fully driven on his mission as Batman in the story. And as we see later on, it's that mission kind of changes, or his view on it changes over the course of the movie. But I didn't necessarily get the fact that that's going to change anything as far as him having the different persona as Bruce or Batman. I'm sure it might have some effect, but regardless, it was just kind of cool to see that type of version of Bruce Wayne / Batman in this movie. So yeah, Robert Pattinson was great at it. I can't wait to see more stories and more films with him as Batman. He's already making this version of Batman his own, and a really great one to boot. So yeah, he was fantastic. One thing I will say that I don't think we've got a lot of, because, or at least from what I heard in kind of the buildup and both Rat Reeves and Pattinson talking about this version of Batman, how he's kind of like a Batman unhinged and like not full in like control of himself as far as like beating down criminals and just kind of being a little extreme. We got a little bit of that, but I don't think that was the case with his character. I did felt he was one that who was more in control and knew his limits as far as how far he would go, until he pumped that bit of adrenaline in him, which was cool at the very end. But I was kind of surprised we didn't get more of that, like Batman kind of unhinged and just not necessarily one who's in full control of his actions and himself just yet. So I'm not sure if that's really a criticism I had with it, because I don't think it took away anything from the movie, but it was something I guess going into it I was expecting. Because I kind of felt like the Bale version of Batman was kind of more of that unhinged Batman in certain circumstances, especially in The Dark Knight with the Joker, where he just lets loose and he kind of doesn't care what happens. But with this Batman, I did kind of expecting more of that with the talk going into it, but felt it wasn't really that was the case for this version of it. But again, not necessarily a criticism, but something that I was kind of expecting going in, but didn't really get much of that as I was led to believe. That maybe that's just on me, but the stuff we did get with Robert Pattinson as Batman was just really, really well done. And yeah, he nailed it, and I just can't wait to see more of him, which I'm pretty confident we're going to get more movies with Robert Pattinson as Batman, which is great.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned you didn't want to see anything that Robert Pattinson was in. I've only ever seen him in one movie, and that's The Lighthouse. And yeah, he is a tour de force in such a small little movie. It's also funny because I never saw Zoe Kravitz in anything.
Me neither,
I had no idea who she was. But then I saw on HBO Now they have that movie Kimmy, and so I watched it, and I was like, oh, yeah, she's really good in it, and I was like, yeah, she's gonna be a good Catwoman. But yeah, I really like how they don't really distinguish between the Batman and Bruce, because they're essentially the same person, and you can do that billionaire playboy thing, but then that's sort of been done before, and you gotta respect how they sort of almost kind of eliminated the character. He's there. The Bruce Wayne is there, but he's just a shell of the Bruce Wayne that we know in the comics or in any of the other movies. So yeah, like I really like the aspect of like they're not there is no difference between the two. And then when we do see, I think I read it, and I thought it summed it up perfectly. This Bruce Wayne is the reclusive rock star, right? He's not the billionaire playboy as we know him. And there's a reason for that, because again, it plays into the psychology of the character, and we're going to get into Martha coming up pretty soon. So like it plays into the character. You got to have something wrong with you if you're dressing up like a bat and going around and beating up people. I mean, that's just if we're going to do this realist sort of take on Batman, like how can you be a sane human being if you're doing that, right? So it really works for me. I don't know. I don't know if people are really missing the playboy billionaire sort of act that Bruce puts on, but yeah, it totally worked for me.
Yeah, like you said, it was definitely something that was kind of refreshing to see, because we have seen that before with the dual identity of Bruce Wayne putting on that playboy act, and I love that aspect of Batman. It's great, but again, when we're this far deep into new live action Batman movies, you got to do something different, and I'm really glad they decided to go this route for just having Bruce just really be focused on Batman. That's all that matters to him, as he tells Alfred in that one scene. And I guess we'll stay on the subject of allies. If I just mentioned, let's talk about Alfred, Andy Serkis as Alfred. This is actually one of my disappointments with the movie. I
knew it was going to be.
I really wish we got more Alfred.
Yeah,
because
I knew it was going to be.
Yeah. So Andy Serkis, in the few scenes he was in, I thought he would have been a great Alfred, and they definitely took pages, as we knew they would, from the Earth One version of Alfred as the more grizzled, not tough Alfred, but I think if we got more insight, more a conversation between Alfred and Bruce, we would have gotten that, where he did say he trained Bruce how to fight, and I think even in, like, there was a prequel novel that came out that establishes that he was the one who trained Bruce, and that would have been, even though we got a little hint of that in the movie, I would have loved if more of that was explored. And we're going to jump ahead here. I'm not going to go through the movie in a linear fashion, talking about everything that happens, but kind of jumping over the place as we're talking about the characters and the story. But that moment they had at the hospital was a really great one. But I felt if we kind of got more scenes with them and talking about more of their relationship together, it would have been more impactful. Because one of my criticisms I do have with it is the whole thing as far as Alfred kind of being taken out by that explosion. At first I was worried, oh man, I hope they didn't kill Alfred off in this movie. Beat it so little, but it just felt it was kind of Alfred not beaten enough. It didn't have that same impact if we gotten more into that relationship with Alfred and Bruce in this movie, and if Andy Serkis did have a bigger role with that. So as much as I did really enjoy that scene between them, it was a heartwarming scene between kind of Bruce really accepting Alfred as being that father figure, even though Alfred tells him, like, he feels bad, like, you needed a father, but all you got was me. And just some really great stuff between them. But I really wanted to dive deeper into that. And going into the whole revelation we learned about Thomas Wayne and Martha, I don't know if you want to get into that now or more when we talk about the Riddler.
Sure, why not? Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that was something going into the movie I was excited about. And to have Bruce's family be part of this corruption in Gotham City. And we did get, obviously, that played a big part in this movie. But honestly, if I had my biggest complaint about this movie, which I felt if they did more, I could have reached that level of me loving it, like as a top tier all-time favorite Batman movie, is that I wish they dove deeper into that idea of Bruce dealing with that revelation of what was revealed about Thomas Wayne and Martha Arkham and her past, and how he was trying to cover up, and the whole thing was trying to use Falcone to get that reporter to not go with the story and end up leading to that reporter's death. And I liked how Matt Reeves really orchestrated that story, and how would it be Thomas Wayne was not as clean as he was made out to be, and not that really, he had his mistakes. Alfred even said it, he made one mistake, but having it not be where he was a full-blown evil guy, kind of like how in the Telltale series, and that's what made me think that this story was going to take a little inspiration for that. And it did, kind of having the history of Thomas and Martha Wayne being a little dark, but it didn't go to that full extreme where, because they were full on bad guys pretty much in the Telltale series. But this one, I thought it did a nice job of just being it where just one bad mistake that Thomas Wayne did, and it had enormous consequences for a lot of people. And they were still feeling the effects of that mistake over the course of this movie. But my thing with that is I thought everything about it was really great. I just thought it should have been, I think, used more, dove deeper into more as far as Bruce's reaction to that. I mean, we do see it, don't get me wrong. We see how that affects him. He goes to see Carmine Falcone and his conversation we had to Alfred. He's upset about it. But I really wanted to have that be explored more with him as Batman, like really questioning like what he's doing as Batman, like kind of even contemplating if he should kind of give it up, like just, and maybe, and I was kind of thinking that was going to lead into being more of that unhinged Batman, kind of out of control after learning that revelation, but that never really happened. But I just really wish that they would have lasted, or that story plot point was in the movie of more than it was, because it was a 3-hour movie, and I was kind of hoping at we would have got that revelation earlier, so we could deal with it more as we get through the course of the movie towards the end. But it was really like this one section of the movie, and it was revealed, it was dealt with, and then it was moved on from. I just wish it was expanded on more, because I really find that to be the most interesting aspect of the movie, and I think how Bruce would react to that and deal with it as Batman. I mean, how cool would it have been if we got like a scene where he's at his parents' grave, kind of similar to Mask of the Phantasm, but in a totally different context, where he's just questioning what he's doing as Batman. Like, should he be doing this knowing what his father did, and just kind of really at a loss for himself, and see that continuing as Batman, not just with him out of costume as Bruce Wayne. And I thought having him deal with that for more in the movie than it was, I think would have been really, really cool. But it's one of those things where I really liked what we got in that, but it could have been even better if it was kind of used more throughout the movie, except in a small portion of it. So I would say that is my biggest criticism of the movie, where it kind of held it back a little bit for me, because it was such a great and interesting plot point to explore. And I'm so glad they did that. I just really think it could have been used to greater effect if they did it more.
Yeah, and I am on the total opposite of what you just said. I am glad that they didn't make it a big thing. They, I guess, in the context of let's make this a Batman film, they should have done it. But I'm glad they didn't, because, again, we know the story. It's been beaten into us for however many movies now. What happened to the Waynes? What happened to Bruce, right? Don't need to see that again. And I think what that story point was supposed to be, and I really appreciate the movie for it, was it shows how corrupted Gotham is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is poisoned by corruption. From
like, no matter how good you are,
so from the obvious, like the politicians, the mayor, the DA working for Falcone, to the police, running essentially a drug ring, Sal Maroni's drug ring, so being, a drug gang, right? And, even something as pure as starting an orphanage, or that Wayne, do you remember what it was called?
Like the renewal, like the renewal fund,
renewal project.
Yeah,
the renewal project. Yeah, even something like that, something that was supposed to be good is poisoned by corruption. And it also sort of plays into the Riddler storyline, where, he was an orphan, and his only highlight of life was being used as a political prop, right?
Yeah.
And even though he was a political prop for Thomas Wayne, and Thomas Wayne, at the end of the day, was corrupted. He wanted, even though his intentions were quote unquote good, he wanted to intimidate the journalist, right? So that the journalist wouldn't release information about Martha's history of mental problems, right?
Real quick, Dane, did you pick up on that with the journalist? I forget his first name, but his last name being Elliot. And as we're getting the reveal, you see newspapers like saying "hush money" or like "keep him hush." Did you get the vibe that they're trying to indicate that that is hush?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up later. Like, Hush would make a perfect villain for this Batman. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, anyway, it's like it's just a metaphor. They're using Thomas Wayne, even though he's trying to do a quote unquote good thing. I wouldn't say intimidating a journalist is a good thing, let alone killing them. I mean, it's not a good thing. so like even someone like your own father is corrupted by the city, and it's a Sisyphean task that, and it plays well into that ending, where Bruce isn't about vengeance anymore. He realizes he can use it to help people. It's like I said, it's a Sisyphean task where it's like you can't win, and it's tragic, and that's what makes Batman tragic. And I think, and I really appreciate the movie for playing into that whole corruption thing, and making it where it's not so much about the Batman and Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne and like this personal sort of thing. It's more about the system. The system is corrupt, and even though you're this shining beacon of the city and you're a billionaire and everybody loves you, you could still be corrupted. And if a person like that can be corrupted, you could see someone like the mayor or the DA or the chief of police, or hell, even Gordon, let's say, can be corrupted. Yeah.
No, yeah. When you look at it that way, even regardless, like I said, it was something that I just really glad that was a plot point of the movie that was really the focus of like the whole build up and the reasoning for what's going on with Riddler doing what he's doing and causing all this chaos with these murders and just questioning everything. But I don't know. I guess it just comes from me and just what I love most about Batman as a character is just what really drives him as far as no movie has really done this. I was hoping that the Batman would be the one where it just kind of really focuses on Bruce doing what he does as Batman for the promise that he made to his parents, making sure that what happened to him doesn't happen to anybody else, and that being the driving force. And once it got revealed that maybe Thomas Wayne does have some dark secrets, Bruce would really call that into question over the course of the movie, as far as the promise I made to him is worthless now because of like my father doing what he did. And again, that wasn't really addressed on in the movie. The fact, again, no movie has had a Batman where the reason he is Batman is because it's a promise he made to his parents at their grave. And that's one of the big reasons why the animated series is my favorite interpretation of of Batman, because that's really what drives him on his mission. And I'm waiting for a live action movie to really use that as the motivation for him being Batman. And I'm still waiting on that. But again, that's just something on my end that I love to see be brought into the focal point of a Batman story. And so far, no live action Batman movie has done that yet. And I felt this one had the potential, and it would go really good if you introduce that aspect of Batman, and for that being his real motivation, and then getting the revelation of what was learned about Thomas and Martha Wayne, just really kind of throwing him in for a loop. But again, that's kind of something on me where if I'm kind of hoping for that going in, that's my fault of being disappointed that it wasn't there, not necessarily Matt Reeves and the story he wanted to tell, because this is what he wanted to tell. And the story he did tell was really good. It was just, again, for my taste in what I like in this version of Batman and what you could do with this type of story was just a little different from what Matt Reeves wanted to tell. But he's obviously a much better storyteller than I could ever be. So don't want to use that as really a complaint on him.
Yeah, and also I'm not sure if this is what he's trying to say or whatever, but vengeance is tied to the murder of his parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he decides not to, beat Batman out of vengeance. And he can use Batman to help people. And, in the end, it sort of feels like, I guess the counterpoint to what you're saying is he's doing it for himself, right? He's finally doing something for himself. And his parents are dead. Nothing's going to change that. No matter what he does, nothing is going to change the fact that his parents were killed. And he is his step from, vengeance to, doing something for the people is, one of the first things he's done in his life since his parents were killed. it's something for himself. It's the first time he's done something for himself rather than, oh, my parents and,
Mhm.
vengeance and, oh, I got to beat up bad guys and stop crime and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, maybe that's what Matt Reeves is trying to say. And yeah, that's just a counterpoint to what
Mhm.
you were saying.
And let's get into this right now since you brought it up or talking about it.
Yeah.
The very end and
Mhm.
talking about the line "I am vengeance." And see, this is another thing where I have mixed reactions on, and it's
Yeah.
going to be kind of hard for me to explain, but I'll try to do the best that I can. But because what you were just saying, I know what Matt Reeves was going for here. It is a great moment for the character where, I mean, visually, some of the shots we got at that very end sequence with Batman helping the people escape from the rubble and out of the flooding building, I mean, it was beautifully done. There's that shot we first saw in the trailer where Batman's looking up in the sky and he's covered full of dust. His suit is dirty. He's amongst rubble. I mean, when we see that in the first time in the trailer, no way would I have guessed of what the context actually is of that scene. You would think he's looking at an enemy who's kind of getting away after blowing up a building or something, and Batman escaped, and he's like looking up, like at the villain, angrily showing like I'm gonna get you for this type of thing. But the fact that he's looking up at like a rescue helicopter taking an injured person flying away, I mean, the context of that was totally different than what I was expecting, but it was so beautifully done. And there were some other great shots of just seeing Batman be the hero that we all know that he is. And it was just kind of great to see. There's so many beautiful shots in there to see Batman as the true hero helping people. But here's the thing I'm torn on. The way that was kind of used were having to move on from the "I am vengeance" line. I mean, because obviously it was a wake up call for him when he saw one of those followers of the Riddler when he was unmasked, and Gordon asked him, "Who are you?" He just goes, "I am vengeance," and obviously that has Batman's reaction to that is obviously not a good one. Thinking, "Oh, like this is not who I want to be. This is not what my vengeance is about." Obviously, being nothing like that person, but yet they're kind of using the same ideals to do what they do. And here's the thing I'm mixed on because I know what Matt Reeves is going for, moving beyond that. But at the same time, I don't think Batman being vengeance is necessarily a bad thing that motivates him as a character. And sorry to go back to it, but Batman the Animated Series, that being a focal point to what that version of Batman does, what he does. He said that throughout the series. I mean, the iconic line, "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman." He doesn't shy away from that as being his motivation of vengeance of the criminals that did that horrible thing to him as a little boy. And again, going back to that point, using vengeance as something to make sure what happens to him doesn't happen to anyone else. And how in Batman the Animated Series he uses that as his motivation, but at the same time still being it to help those people or help everyone that he can. Not necessarily moved beyond that, but kind of have incorporate, I guess, the two aspects. And I just kind of felt in the movie it was kind of like vengeance, him being vengeance is a bad thing, and he has to move away from that. And I don't necessarily think that's has to be the case, where it can still be both. He uses vengeance as that motivation in a good way, and it's obviously not a healthy way to uh, go about living your life, but it's something that I think where I don't know. See, again, this is what kind of hard to say. I loved how it showed Batman helping these people and like just really showing the hero that he is, but coming at the expense of moving away from that point of him saying "I am vengeance." Maybe doesn't have to be the case, and maybe it won't be. It just my first reaction to seeing the movie for the first time, and maybe this is something that will feel differently when I see it again. But it just felt like, oh, Batman has to move away from being the "I am vengeance" because someone who was obviously using it for bad as the Riddler follower did, and that kind of being the realization where now he has to look at what he does as Batman to use it to help people. I just felt maybe it could have been shown better as being a good balance, but I don't know. Again, it's hope I'm explaining myself right, but it was just something I had mixed reactions on, and I don't know. One little criticism I have about it too, just coming from a filmmaking perspective, the way Batman uh, cut off that wire so it could stop the water from being shocking people and being electrocuted. Felt, I don't know, played up a little over dramatically because it was like done in slow motion. He cut the wire and he lets out that scream and he falls into the water, and just he immediately gets up right afterwards. Like, we all obviously we know he's not going to die from that, but it just felt like they kind of set it up to me where it's like making this big sacrifice. I mean, it's a heroic deed, of course, but it almost felt like they were trying to play it out where he's sacrificing himself, and it's going to be a surprise when you see him get out of that water. But it was just like, no, he got up for it, like 1, 2, 3. So I don't know, that's a little nitpick right there. But yeah, that whole sequence, it's like I really like what came after that of him showing helping people. And it was just a great moment too, where he reaches his hand out, and the first person who reaches out to it is the mayor's son, the little boy. And that was one like small little plot thread I loved about the movie. Just Bruce's kind of really taking or really showing, or that when he sees that boy, the son's mirror at the murder scene, and he's just really taken back by it. Again, going to that point, seeing himself in that little boy who lost his father. And again, going back to that point where this is probably the one aspect of the movie where it kind of felt like it was that driving force for him, not letting what happened to him happen to anyone else. And he sees kind of himself in that little boy. Obviously, that affects him, seeing that happen to someone else, and he wasn't able to stop it. And that through line of, for that little boy seeing him for the first time at the murder scene, and then kind of looking at him not necessarily as someone he's going to reach out to and look for help in Batman. But I think the boy recognized even in that moment that Batman was someone who's probably there to help in like a weird way, understand each other, like knowing they went through the same thing. And then when he sees Batman reach out for him, that extends that hand to help him, and having the boy be the one to be the first one to recognize that, yeah, Batman is really here to help us. That was just a great moment, I felt, and a great, nice through line to end that little plot thread throughout the course of the movie, as that little boy being the first one to recognize that, yeah, that Batman is a good guy and is here to help us. So I loved all that stuff. It's just kind of the lead up to that, where kind of at the expense of maybe Batman realizing or coming to the conclusion that he can't be that I am vengeance. Because I did like how everyone was calling him that. Penguin called him that, Catwoman called him that, vengeance. It was just kind of a nice new nickname for him to have over the course of the movie. So I guess at the end of the day, I hope that's something that's not totally abandoned for this version of the character, because we have seen in the past in other Batman stories as him really clinging into that idea of vengeance against criminals is, I think, a good thing for the character to have. But it all depends, I guess, on the story that you're trying to tell and how you're using it. So we'll kind of guess have to wait and see if that is something they fully move on from in sequels, if this version of Batman kind of does abandon that whole I am vengeance thing. Because I thought it worked really well in this movie. And at the same time, too, I understand where, as a story and character arc goes to, understand what Matt Reeves was trying to do here in this version of Batman, and maybe moving beyond that aspect. So again, yeah, mixed reactions a little bit for me at that ending sequence, because I both really, really loved what they were trying to do, but also kind of wish they went about it in a little bit of different way. But I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be the par for the course, Dan. You probably felt exactly opposite in how that was handled in that end sequence, and the whole thing with the I am vengeance being a major plot thread throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah, but I feel like I've already made my point. I don't know if vengeance is a good thing to be doing or to be feeling or what have you.
No, obviously, yeah, it is an unhealthy obsession to have, but at the same time, again, that's what Batman uses that. Again, going back to the animated series, it's like that's what he uses that in a positive way for him. Even though it's probably unhealthy for him, he still kind of uses that in the positive way for good against bad guys and criminals.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that, but I also see it as character progression, which is, with these new movies, whether it be a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie, it's the one thing that people don't like is character progression. Character getting over the sort of like thing that they're about, right, and becoming something new. um, or sort of like resolving the contradictions in what they're doing and realizing it and it becoming something else. I think that's what people have a problem with, and that's why people don't really like. Oh, they're doing a reboot of so and so of this thing or that thing or what have you, right? We saw it with Book of Boba Fett, and we're seeing it with this movie too. I see it as character progression. You can't constantly be one thing. Is at the end of the day what I'm all about. Is like you just can't be constantly one thing throughout your entire life, and it's character progression. It's moving the character forward. Instead of doing it for his parents, instead of doing it for himself, or doing it out of some duty to his parents, it's something different now. It's for the people. He can help people. He can't stop crime. You can't stop crime. No matter what you do, you can't stop it. If there's people living together, there will always be crime. But what you can do is you can help people. And I think that's what Matt Reeves is trying to say is like, I mean, look at the corruption from the lowest level police officer to the highest level, the mayor of the city, to Thomas Wayne. You can't stop. You can't stop crime. You just can't do it. No matter what you do, no matter how much money you spend on it, you just can't do it. But you can help people. You can help victims of crime, and you can't prevent it. You can't prevent it. You can only help people. And if that's what Matt Reeves is trying to say, I think in this day and age, it's a really good message.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would totally agree with that. I think I got to remember too, where obviously this is the second year of Batman's career, and it's still pretty early on.
Sure.
I guess what kind of threw me for a loop is that he would have had, the motivation and I guess to first and foremost to help people, not be his first priority. But I guess I was kind of expecting that to already be there and not to actually see that moment help him or help him realize that in the movie. So I guess that's kind of something where I was taken a little surprised by that, but at the same time, again, it's still very early in his career, so it does make sense in a story standpoint where it would still be early on in the stage of his career as Batman, where he kind of would make that adjustment a little bit too. So, but yeah, like you said, if this is a story that Matt Reeves wants to tell and develop for the character, I mean, yeah, all the power to him. And this, again, it's even though it's something that I didn't necessarily love how it was developed and shown in the movie, it's something where it's like that's okay. I mean, there's so many different versions of this character and these stories now. Even if some doesn't play out exactly as how you would want it, but you still appreciate the message that's there and the story that's trying to get across. I mean, it's not worth really complaining about or really being too hung up on it as far as ruining the experience or whatnot. It was just something that I would have done differently if I was again behind the camera, but I'm not, and the movie's definitely better off for that. But it's just something that as I was feeling and I was watching that moment. But
yeah, I wish more YouTubers were like you, Tim.
Which is probably why I'm not on YouTube.
Yeah.
Never will be. But yeah, okay. So let's move on to another character, and let's go on to Selena Kyle, Catwoman, played by Zoe Kravitz. And you alluded to it earlier, Dane. Yeah, she was great as Selena Kyle and Catwoman. My only thing, my only good thing about it, this is going back to kind of with Alfred. I wish she was in it more because it's weird because I felt she was in it a good portion of the movie, but I don't know if you felt this way. It just kind of felt like there was gaps where she wasn't in it a lot, and then she'd come back and won't be in it for a bit, and then you see her again. But it was like all the scenes she was in, it was like she really had a presence in it as just being a really great Catwoman and Selena Kyle. And I just really liked how they dove into in her backstory for this one, really diving into her comic book lore as far as being tied to Carmine Falcone being her father and taking a lot of elements from the Long Halloween and incorporated it into her origin story here. And just seeing her work with Batman in a different way that we haven't seen before. More Selena Kyle working with Batman than Catwoman working with Batman, because we did get their little scuffle that they had in the mayor's home at the crime scene, but we didn't really get that like classic Batman Catwoman rooftop chase or rooftop fight sequence here and there, kind of them going back and forth, like catch me if you can type of thing. But this one, it was really like they were both after they're at a mutual kind of goal that they had to reach, and they decided to work together, and kind of Batman using Selena Kyle and her access to the Iceberg Lounge and the Underground Club there, using that as to get more information and to investigate this murder mystery. So they did have that working relationship that we've seen Batman and Catwoman have in a lot of stories, but done in a really different way. And then also having that dynamic where even though they both have some mutual goals that they want to accomplish, they're going to go about it in different ways. Catwoman trying to ask him to, if I find this dirty cop, you're going to help me deal with them, right? I mean, we all know what that means, to kill him. And it comes to a focal point where she had him on that rooftop, and she asked him again, and Batman pulled that gun away, and not being able to go down that path that she's able to, and trying to convince her not to go down that line, but yet she's willing to cross that line. And she even does, kicking him off that rooftop, and Batman and Gordon have to help him. So they even had that aspect in there that worked really well. So Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz had a great chemistry as Batman and Catwoman. I just felt that, again, she was maybe absent a bit for too long over the course of the movie, for like a good amount of time, where you were hoping that she would be more of a consistent character throughout the movie as far as her screen time. But that was my only complaint of it, because like you said, she was done really, really well. And even though they parted ways and she went to Bloodhaven, which was a nice reference there. Hopefully this isn't the last we're going to see her in future movies, because they really had a great chemistry and just a great dynamic as Batman and Catwoman here.
Yeah, now that you mention it, Tim, finally we agree on something.
Yeah.
No, she's very much the 3PO or R2 of this new Batman.
Wow, I didn't think we'd get that comparison.
Yeah, they're kind of just there in and out, and except Catwoman has more of a part of the story. She has vested interest in what's going on with Annika, or is that how you pronounce it? Annika,
like
or
Annika, I think it was.
Annika, right, Annika. And or let's just say it, Holly, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
She has more of a vested interest in how she's connected with Falcone, of course. Everybody knew that, she's an integral part of the story. And again, Zoe Kravitz is a really good actress, and she impressed me with Kimmy, and she impressed me with this movie. And hopefully she's in this next movie coming up.
I'm glad they didn't shy away from her having cats either. I mean, that's The Dark Knight Rises, where she was never even called Catwoman, just as a cat burglar. But the fact that this version of Catwoman has tons of cats in her apartment, and they're all kind of warming up to Batman, and how she says she has a thing for strays, was a great aspect. And she even took the cats with her on her motorcycle.
Yeah, well, so did Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, right? Did she have like almost a legal amount of cats?
Well, no, because there was a bunch of cats that brought her back to life.
Yeah.
For unknown reasons, but I don't think she had her own cats though.
Yeah. Oh, okay, never mind. I don't know. I just remember that scene where they're chewing on her fingers.
Yeah,
it still grosses me out.
Yeah, they weren't hers, and again, still don't know how they brought her back to life, but oh well, and gave her 9 lives.
Yeah. That's a good question, Tim. Maybe cats have a secret power that we quite don't understand yet.
Well, then hopefully maybe one of our cats that we have could bite us and give us 9 lives or something like that. We don't even know it. So yeah, before moving on to the full villains of the movie, I guess the other allied character we got to talk about is Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright in this movie, and yeah, he was great too. And I really liked how him and Batman were really partners in this movie, and just not where he's going to his office, getting some information, giving some information, but they're at the crime scene together. They're in action sequences together. It was a really great dynamic that they had, just showing how their working relationship is and how they're really the only two people that they trust. I mean, they say as much to each other, and it was just really cool to see. One thing about this movie is it's not an origin movie, and we're not seeing the first appearance of Batman. We're not seeing Batman and Gordon meet for the first time. But I gotta say, after seeing how their working relationship is, I would have loved to see how Gordon and Batman met for the first time in this. So just kind of see where it all began and seeing how they built that trust up. But because it works so well in this movie, and I liked how too Gordon is like just casually calls Batman man, like easy man, like hey man. Just like a really cool casual like friendship that they have going on here. It was just really like seeing that dynamic that they had in this one, and yeah, just realizing even this corrupt city, this corrupt politicians, corrupt police officers, both of them are like incorruptible, really. And that's what makes the Batman Gordon dynamic work so well in any Batman stories. And I like how Batman even says that to Gordon, where like you're not a target, like you're not corrupt, and it's just really good that it was emphasized that between them two. So yeah, it was just really cool to see this dynamic that Batman and Gordon have in this movie, just like really working together as pretty much like police partners in a detective story. One's just wearing a bat costume, so it's just like kind of a cool dynamic to see really Gordon and Batman working a lot more than we've seen in other Batman movies. And you know how much I love Gary Oldman's version of Commissioner Gordon, and that's still just probably the best portrayal of the character that I've seen in live action. But how this one went about it in a different way, just I think really showing more of them working together to solve a case that you would see over the course of several issues of a Batman story play out, where they're just really working together at crime scenes, in battle sequences or chases, and just all over the place. I mean, they covered the gamut in this movie of what they did together as a team to unsolve this mystery, and it was just really cool to see that really be a focal point of showing how the relationship works in this movie.
Yeah, I like that line he has. I think it was in the orphanage when he pulls out his gun, and then Batman says like,
"Oh yeah,
no guns," and he says something like, "Yeah, that's not happening. I'm gonna use my gun."
Yeah, just
yeah,
really. I'm sorry, Dad. I just gonna say, it just really felt like they've been around the block together before, working together, fighting crime in Gotham City. That really came across, and it was just great.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point, is how well they work together. And they have this pre-existing relationship, and especially in that first scene at the crime scene, where Gordon lets Batman into the scene, and they're talking, they're doing this thing, and then Gordon gets yelled at by his boss. I can't remember the chief of police's name.
That was the commissioner.
Yeah, the commissioner, right? Yeah, and yells at him, and for letting Batman into the scene, and just the sort of, I mean, it plays into the whole corruption thing, but like how different the cops act around Batman, right? And then the only person that's really comfortable with him is Gordon. And then there's a scene at the funeral scene where he or I should back up a bit there. During the crime scene there's a there is a scene there's a scene with one of the cops, and the cop doesn't like Batman, and then during the funeral scene where Batman is Bruce Wayne, the cop treats him totally different and is nice to him. And it's the same cop. It's the same guy. So yeah, like they're really hammering it home that Gordon is the only cop that really likes Batman or is comfortable around him, and it puts a whole new spin. I guess this movie puts a whole new spin on that GCPD show that's coming out on HBO Max. Is it going to be about the corruption, or is it going to be like? Is it going to be centered around Gordon? Is it going to act like a stepping stone where it's going to be like, oh, this is how Gordon became Commissioner Gordon,
Well, if I
sort
remember
of
right,
thing.
I think Matt Reeves has talked about. He definitely said it's going to kind of focus on the corruption in the Gotham City Police Department.
Yeah.
And I believe this is what I don't know 100%, but if I remember right, I think he does say the series takes place in year one of Batman's appearance. So it's going to take place before the events of the movie, like a whole year before, if I remember right.
I see.
And kind of seeing, I guess,
okay.
every the police officer's initial reaction to having Batman on the scene.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this was a great new take on Gordon, and just seeing him work with Batman was just a lot of fun over the course of the movie. And then I guess now we can move on to the villains in the movie. And before we get to the big one, I guess we'll start with Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, or Ozzy, as he's referred to in this movie. Yeah, was it Ozzy or Oz? Maybe it was just Oz. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it was Oz. Yeah.
But boy, talk about Colin Farrell disappearing into a role, man. You would not know at all that was him. I mean, he was just the Penguin in this movie. And again, he was one of those characters who wasn't in it a whole lot, but just served his purpose well, as someone who's not really at the top of the crime boss food chain just yet, but he's working his way up, and just kind of being there as almost like another suspect of who can maybe be the Rat, as was the person everyone was trying to figure out who it was to bring the Riddler out of hiding, and just kind of being someone who could possibly be there and just be another wrinkle in this whole big corruption scandal that's going on. But Penguin was used effectively as far as being someone who was in charge of the Iceberg Lounge, and I kind of feel like it didn't look like the classic Iceberg Lounge that we all know and love from the comics and the animated series, but Carmine Falcone was still running the whole thing. So Penguin wasn't in charge just yet. So now that Falcone is out of the way, and I think obviously they're setting the stage for Penguin to become the big crime boss in Gotham, he might do a little redecorating in the Iceberg Lounge and maybe have it really feel like an iceberg, and you see it go kind of have it look like the club we're used to seeing in the comics. But we'll see if we ever get to that point. But I think that's going to be the case. But just kind of seeing in that mob element that we haven't seen before in a live action Batman movie. Obviously being totally different in the direction they did in Batman Returns with the origins and the development of the Penguin for this story. But he was a great Penguin to see whenever he was in. He was obviously, his big moment was the big chase sequence in the movie that we see in the trailers, and just seeing how all that played out just really delivered on like the setup as him kind of being a little over the top when he needed to be, but also being that kind of cool and collective crime boss when he needed to be, and just kind of seeing him get interrogated by Batman and Gordon. Not quite the interrogation scene I was expecting, but just because it was kind of played more for, I guess, the few comedic moments we got in this movie, because there wasn't a whole lot, but this was definitely one of them, especially his reaction being left behind by Batman and Gordon in handcuffs. But I thought Colin Farrell did a really good job of being this Penguin, and just seeing how he was here, kind of not at the height of his power just yet, but knowing that he's going to get his own HBO Max series, that's definitely going to be something interesting to see unfold, especially where this movie leaves things, and just kind of the power vacuum that's going to be there for the criminal underworld, which I'm sure they're going to explore in his own series. So, but yeah, this was a really cool version of Penguin to get in the live action Batman movie. I'm really glad they went with the mob boss element and just kind of seeing him grow from there. So yeah, Colin Farrell as Penguin was really, really good. But it wasn't I said he wasn't in it a whole lot, but I felt it's something where It wasn't lacking because of that. It was something that felt right. He had the right amount of screen time for this particular story, and he was where he needed to be over the course as the plot moved forward in this detective story that they were telling. So I thought he was used well.
You know, I really hope they rename the club from the Iceberg Lounge to I hope they rename it Club Penguin. Like the what was that, like a MMO or something?
Was it? I don't know.
Yeah, there was an MMO or something called Club Penguin.
Really?
I really hope they rename the Iceberg Lounge. That's all I ask for this upcoming Penguin show. Um,
Maybe that should be the name of the
but
show,
yeah,
Club Penguin.
yeah, Club Penguin. Because you figure the club is going to play a big part in the series, right?
You would think, yeah. It's probably gonna be the main
Yeah.
location.
But yeah, you nailed out all of the points, Tim. I still have a hard time believing that was Colin Farrell. I mean, do we know for a fact that was Colin Farrell in the
Right.
in the makeup, or was that was that like an actor that looks like that? But no, yeah, I love his Penguin. It's right up there with Danny DeVito. I'll say that. And yeah, I want to see this Penguin show. I just finished Peacemaker. I
Okay.
don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't started it yet, but
It's
on my list.
it's probably DC's best show.
I heard great things about it, yeah.
It's really good. It starts off a little rough, but once you get to the end, once you get, I don't know, past like the first episode and a half, it really kicks off, and it's a really good show. But anyway, if they do the same thing with Penguin, oh man, that's going to be a great show, and definitely worth watching. So yeah, I love Penguin in this in this movie. Like you said, he was in it enough, but not over. He's not overdone, especially because we have what, three villains, if you're counting the ones with flair, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. Um,
3 from Batman's Rogues Gallery, I guess, yeah.
you're right, Falcone, Penguin, and Riddler, of course. So yeah, I really liked Penguin.
All right, and that leads us to the big bad guy of this movie. And Dane, I want to hear yours. Give your reaction first on this, because I know this was what you were looking forward to the most. Even the early days of like the first trailer, first look of this version of the Riddler, and I got to hear if it lived up to your high expectations.
It did. Um, I really thought it was interesting how they sort of flipped the villain. You know, rather than having like the ultimate bad guy that knows everything, that is the smartest guy and, you know, the strongest guy, all of this nonsense, paired up against, again, the smartest guy, the strongest guy, the what have you, right? Um, I thought it was really interesting how they sort of flipped that on its head, where when Riddler is caught, he's sad and pathetic, right? And like I said before, like the highlight of his life before becoming the Riddler was being used as a political prop. And I really like the aspect of how like he thinks he's helping Batman by, at the very end, literally washing away the bad of Gotham.
Mm.
I really enjoyed it. It's not what I thought it was going to be, and I'm so glad it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Where it was like, okay, so they're going to do the Dark Knight thing, right? And they're going to have like this fight scene, even though Batman is supposed to be the strongest and the coolest and the most martial artisty guy, and yet he's getting beat up by this skinny, pale, white guy, right? I gotta appreciate I gotta appreciate it for the fact that I don't know, I just felt sad for the guy at the end. I, I felt like this is what makes Batman's villains so great, compared to rogues galleries from like other superheroes, where it's like I just feel bad for some of the villains and like I feel bad for the Riddler that he's in this situation where he thinks he has to team up with Batman. He has these delusions of grandeur that he has to team up with Batman, and he has to save the city, and he has to stop the corruption, and he has to do all these things, and he's doing them wrong, and he doesn't even know it, or at least he doesn't admit that he knows it. And I don't know, at the end I just felt like so bad for him because he's so pathetic, and he's sad, and he's not like and this is the great thing about it. He's Paul Dano isn't doing the Joker thing where he's mad and he's crazy and he's like this pop psychology whiz sort of thing. It's more sinister, and it's more disturbed in that way, where he thinks he's doing something good, but he's not doing something good. I mean, at the end of the day, is what the whole story behind Riddler is. And that was the other big thing, is like I didn't expect to feel so bad for the villain of the movie. Is what I'll say.
No, yeah, Riddler was fantastic in this movie. We knew we were going to get a different version of the character, but one that worked so well, and for the potential of what a villain like Riddler could do to a city and just really cause panic and fear because of revealing not only just obviously these murders and killing people, but revealing like their dark secrets that they had as well, and trying to show the corruption of Gotham. And every scene that focused on the Riddler had Paul Dano in it. It was just a really you felt the creepiness and the sadisticness of the character in this version of the Riddler. And you kind of think of the Riddler as being this really gimmicky villain, all about riddles and being these overtop portrayals that we've seen in the 66 series, Jim Carrey, obviously. But knowing that more can be done with this villain and using riddles as his way of crime, of something that could be really done in a twisted way, in an evil way that it was shown here. It was just really cool to see it, just of how the effect this type of person can have on a city and a bunch of characters as well. So it was just handled really, really beautifully as far as showing what type of villain Riddler is. And as you said too, one of the things that I loved best about it is just how he incorporated Batman into his plan, not as a victim or as someone whose secret he has to reveal. Because in the trailer, when he says that line, "You're a part of this," and he just and Batman doesn't know it yet, you kind of think, oh, he knows he's Bruce Wayne and he's going to reveal that secret about him. But even at the very end, where he was in Arkham and Batman is talking to him, I thought, it was going to reveal that he knows Bruce Wayne, Batman is Bruce Wayne. But it even took Batman by surprise. But that wasn't the point. It was that, how he was feeling as Bruce Wayne, as someone being like the poster child of everything that's wrong and what he's doing as far as the whole renewal funds of being supposed to be being used, like I said, being the political poster child, and how Bruce Wayne, no one cared about the true orphans, and he was explaining to Batman what it means to be a true orphan and how that is not Bruce Wayne, someone who has tons of money, who lives in a castle. And you compare that to children in the orphanage, some who don't even survive. It was just, such a stark contrast. And like you said, kind of one of those instances where you kind of feel bad for him, but at the same time, obviously doesn't excuse for what he's doing, but just makes you think as far as, how messed up the system can be for a lot of people, and how there's so many who are in unfortunate circumstances that people don't even realize. And the fact that he, like you said, he used Batman, or he viewed Batman as his partner, was such, not like a mind-blowing twist or a big plot reveal, but it's just something that it's just done so well and just makes such total sense. And it's almost like a great defeat for Batman, where he even told him, like, all these people I was trying to expose, like, I couldn't have done it without you. Like, you helped me do that. You brought the rat into the light. Like, I couldn't have done that. You brought Falcone out there and I took care of him. So, he's absolutely right. Him and Batman did work together without Batman even realizing it. It's just such a brilliant story move to develop for the character, and just how he views, in a twisted way, Batman as an ally. And you just see how hurt he was when Batman rejects that, and just how somehow they're nothing alike. And you just see the pain and shock in Edward Nashton's face as he's being held prisoner. It was just kind of like, it's kind of like a pathetic way to see a character come about, and this, how, just how twisted he is, really, that he could actually think Batman and him are working together, and how he truly believed that, and just to see how hurt he was. I mean, it was just something for this take on the Riddler I was not expecting. Like, there are certain things I was expecting, like how vicious he would be in his murders and creating a great mystery with his riddles, but his kind of full end game and his full motivation for doing what he does, I was not expecting. And just the performance that Paul Dano gave was just fantastic in both aspects of being this twisted villain and sadistic killer, and then also being like this tortured, like, sad, pathetic character who's doing these things because of a terrible childhood that he's had, but trying to use that as an excuse and to justify his wrong actions. But Paul Dano just played all those different dynamics to his character so well done. And what I liked about it too, one thing I was kind of worried about it when we saw in the trailer, how he would get captured by the police. I was kind of hoping, I hope they're not going to do the whole Dark Knight thing again, where he wants to be captured and it's all part of his plan and he's going to escape and they'll have the final showdown with Batman. But no, once he got captured, that was it for him. His mission was over. He accepted it. He wasn't planning to break out. It was part of his plan, but it was something that that was the end of what he wanted to do, and he was going to leave it up to his followers. So I did like that aspect where he did get captured, but that's how it was supposed to be, and it wasn't something where some big plan of his that he has to escape. So it was done differently, and I really appreciated that. As far as being something different, as how a villain is captured and caught, and that was the end of it. But yet there was still more to the story to tell, and just even him kind of being used like in a modern sense now, as how on social media and live streaming and having these like fanatical followers who are going to listen to him. And sad to say, I mean, that's something that happens in real life. And when you have that exposure and these radical ideas, you are going to get these people who follow you who have the same twisted sense of like they're doing it for justice. And as one of them says at the end, and we talked about, for vengeance against those who are treated unjustly. So yeah, just really kind of did a good job as far as bringing a villain like Riddler into kind of more modern times, but yet still working well with the style or this villain we know as one of Batman's biggest rogues gallery members, as far as having that gimmick of riddles and kind of updating it and using it in a more modern sense still, and having that essence of the Riddler as well. Just told it a totally new way. It was all there for this interpretation of the Riddler, and it was just really great. And probably my favorite scene of the movie is where we have that funeral sequence where the DA has the phone and the bomb strapped to him, and when Batman goes to confront him.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I like how the Riddler allowed the DA guy to phone a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially. I hope if I'm ever in that situation, the person will allow me to phone a friend.
So he gives you a lifeline. He's like, that doesn't make it totally impossible for you to win.
I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
No, that sequence was just great because that just really shows you what the Riddler is all about. Because we have this in several Batman movies. Like in The Dark Knight, we got the quintessential Joker Batman scene in the interrogation. Like it doesn't get better than that. And I felt in this one, we got the quintessential, if I could talk, Riddler Batman scene where we see Riddler doing what he does, having you solve riddles to save your life. I mean, and just the tension that builds over the course of that sequence when the timer's going and the DA is trying to solve these riddles, and obviously he couldn't do it without Batman. And that's great that you have Batman there to counter the Riddler and his riddles. It was just a great dynamic. You felt the tension, and just how scary the Riddler could be with the way he talked and yelled as he's saying these riddles and kind of calling the DA out for his hypocrisy and being a dirty politician. That whole sequence, I think, really captured what makes the Riddler a great villain. Using his riddles as a way to but to torture you and to threaten your life, really. And yet Batman's there to kind of counter it and showing that he is Riddler's equal when it comes to solving this. But it didn't have a happy outcome, though, as the DA did end up dying and realize that there was no way out for him from this. But it was just a great Riddler Batman moment that you would want to see in a movie that features the Riddler as a Batman villain. I just love that whole dynamic as both of them going back and forth with these riddles and talking about like why Riddler is doing this, exposing the corruption in Gotham. It just all played out so well done. And to me, it's totally different, but this is like the Batman Joker interrogation scene, but it's just for the Riddler now. Everything you love about the Riddler was on display in this one moment. It was just really great to see.
Where do you think do you think the Riddler hand makes the cards, or do you think he goes for like a Hallmark and is like, oh, this one will be good for my evil scheme?
Kind of like to think that he makes it himself. He seems like a self-made villain, so I would like to think he made the cards.
Yeah, he's a hipster for sure.
Yeah,
he's a huge hipster. Riddler, Edward Nashton is. I wonder why they didn't just go with Edward Nigma.
Maybe not yet. Maybe he'll adopt that name later on.
Yeah. How many Nigmas do you meet? What did you think about his costume? I really, really liked it, especially if they're going after the serial killer aspect of the character. I mean, he's based on the Zodiac, or what people say the Zodiac look like. People that survive the Zodiac killer. I really, really liked it. I like how he wears his glasses still.
Yeah.
It's like it's such a great, plain, menacing, but menacing, sort of like serial killer look. To look intimidating, to look like an evil thing. But we got to be realistic with it, right? You can't go too outlandish. You can't look like some kind of like space alien or something. But it's still menacing. It still looks evil. It still looks scary. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. It really, captured the scariness that seeing someone like that in a room can have. I mean, just in the very opening sequence where you see the mayor kind of watching the TV and he walks away, and then you just see the Riddler standing behind him in the shadows, and you just see a little bit of his mask. And that was real creepy. And just right away, know this is going to be a creepy take on the Riddler, but it captured that effect really, really well. So yeah, I agree. I loved his costume. It was different, but yet, I mean, it still had the essence of the Riddler. Question mark green. I mean, that's what you need. So yeah, it was a great take just on the Riddler in general. His motivations, the way he thinks about things, and just the look of the character. It was all so well done. It was, again, that great balance of doing something totally new with the character, but yet keeping the essence of what makes the Riddler such a great Batman villain. It was just nailed on all accounts by Paul Dano's performance and the way Matt Reeves wrote and just envisioned the character. It was just the perfect villain for this type of Batman story that you're trying to tell, revolving around murder mysteries and the reasons behind it. It was just done really, really well. Just my favorite aspect of the movie, without a doubt.
I will say I do miss the spandex onesie that Jim Carrey wore in. Maybe he wears that underneath all that black, right?
There you go.
He wears it underneath all that black material.
Or better yet, it's the white one, and he has his hair's dyed pink.
Oh wow, Tim! I totally forgot about that, and I was happy and up until that moment.
Sorry, I had to ruin the Riddler for you. But so yeah, Riddler was great. I mean, as we said, just a great villain to use for this type of movie. But that kind of leads into kind of another villain who showed up in this, and it was like a post-credit scene before the credits, really.
Yeah.
But Riddler was talking to somebody in Arkham Asylum, and we don't see who it is, but we definitely know who it is by the time their conversation is over and they're both laughing hysterically. So I don't know, for this one, it was like, I don't know, I guess it was kind of cool, but I don't really felt the movie needed it. And it, to me, in my opinion, wasn't the greatest tease for the Joker to maybe be in, I don't know if it's going to be the next movie or they're going to build him up maybe for a third one or a future sequel. But I don't know. It wasn't bad or anything. It felt unnecessary to me. And I said I wasn't going to compare too much to the Dark Knight trilogy, and hopefully I've done an okay job at that over the course of this conversation. But you cannot top that Joker card tease at the end of Batman Begins. It's just impossible. It's the perfect tease without having had the character in it. And this one, it didn't really come close to matching that kind of tease. I don't know. It just something I felt wasn't necessarily needed in the movie. And maybe it would have played out or made more sense to see it in there, because it just came out either today or yesterday. Matt Reeves was talking about that deleted scene, how, yeah, it is the Joker before he actually is the Joker. And he kind of wanted to make a point that him and Batman have encountered each other already over the span of these 2 years, but he's not the Joker just yet. But they have encountered each other before. And there was a deleted scene that he did say we'll probably see at some point, where Batman does talk to him in Arkham as he's trying to unravel the mystery of the Riddler, and he goes to see him. And I really want to see that sequence and just kind of see what they were talking about, and just getting that early taste of that Joker Batman dynamic that will be built upon in later movies. But it probably, in the context of the scene that we did get in the movie, might have helped it feel a little more in place, I guess, seeing it in the actual film. So, I mean, it's always cool to know that we're going to get the Joker eventually in this new Batman world that's created here. But I don't know, just didn't necessarily get me too like overly excited or like, oh man, I just cannot wait to see this version of the Joker. I mean, it's cool to know that he's there, but just wasn't necessarily needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, we are going to agree on this one, Tim. This is actually one of my only knocks on the film is this was so heavy-handed and unnecessary. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna get, of course, Joker is gonna be the next villain or the ultimate villain or what have you. But I just thought this was so heavy-handed, sort of like the end of The Dark Knight Rises, where it's like, oh, Robin, why don't you go by Robin, your real name?
Mm-hmm.
Or just something like that. It's like, it's so heavy-handed, and it's like, did we really need that? I totally forgot that. What's his name? Druig was
yeah. See, apologies to
movie.
the actor, but yeah, I only know him from his name in the Eternals. Sorry about that.
I'm looking it up right now. Barry Keoghan.
Okay.
Keoghan. Yeah. Kyogen, I think is how you say it. I don't know. He's Irish, so you got to watch out with the spelling and stuff. But yeah, I totally forgot he was a part of this movie. And apparently, like I was reading, he got drunk one night and posted on Twitter that he's playing the Joker, or he like posted a picture of himself as the Joker or something.
Yeah, I mean, this was one thing I was kind of spoiled on, where that
Yeah.
did kind of get leaked out. It was his own fault because of that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, like I totally forgot about all of that, if I even noticed it in the first place. So yeah, I totally forgot he was in this movie. But yeah, at the end of, I don't know, I just felt like this movie did not need that at all. I thought it was heavy-handed. Maybe if he did it differently, like you just see, the disfigured face, and I don't know, he smiles or something.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe it was just handled differently. Yeah, but I didn't like it, Tim. I didn't. It's my only knock on the movie. It's my only knock. I swear.
Yeah. I will say this too, though. I will look forward to seeing, I mean, if they're going to use the Joker, seeing this actor's portrayal of the Joker. 'Cause I think it will be interesting and something different too. Because
Yeah.
when you see his character in the Eternals as Druid, you do not get any Joker vibes there. But
Nope.
that's kind of what makes
No,
it
you do
exciting,
not.
where you see these actors you don't necessarily think would be that type of character or would be a good fit, and they end up doing something really cool and unique and different. That makes it great, and I think we've all seen that before with a Joker portrayal. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see this take
If you really want to see him in a Joker-esque role, definitely see the movie The Killing of a Sacred Deer with Colin Farrell as
Okay.
himself. Yeah. He no prosthetics. Yeah, he's definitely he's gonna make a great Joker.
Okay.
I have no complaints. I have no fears that he's gonna be like, oh no, it's Heath Ledger all over again. No, this guy, he's gonna be a really good Joker, especially if you see The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because
Yeah.
only movies I've seen him in was Eternals and his role in Dunkirk. That's about it.
Oh, he was in Dunkirk.
Yeah, he was the boy on like that boat that went to, it's been a while
Oh
since I've seen
yeah,
it, but he ends up
he
getting hit in the head and he ends up
dies.
dying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally forgot about that. He's also in The Green Knight, which I tried to watch, and that's got to be one of the biggest letdowns
Oh, really? See,
I've
I
ever.
figured that'd be one of
Yeah,
those movies that's up your alley. I still want to see it, but
no. Well, everybody says it's a great movie, so it's a great movie. I could not get into it. I don't know if it's because of the Arthurian legend sort of thing
well,
aspect
that's the
to
main
it,
reason
where
I want to
I
see
don't
it,
know.
because I love all the
Yeah,
Arthurian legend stuff.
yeah, but do you know the story of the Green Knight?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in your wheelhouse then, I
Okay.
guess, because like I know nothing about
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
the Green Knight. I mean, yeah, the Green Knight, or the only thing I know is Merlin. I know who Merlin is. I know what Excalibur is. I know who King Arthur is, but yeah, like that was the problem. Also, the problem with the lighting. They're doing the Game of Thrones thing where it's like they're doing all natural lighting, and it's just too dark. It's way too dark, and you can't see anything in some scenes. Um, yeah, and the story never really grabbed me because I don't know anything about the Green Knight or King Arthur or Arthurian legends. So a bit of a letdown for me. I thought, like the Batman and Penguin, I thought the prosthetics that they put on the actor that played the bad guy, the Green Knight, um, was it was really good. It was, if you really like the Penguin prosthetics, you're really gonna like the Green Knight prosthetics, because I cannot believe they used prosthetics and they didn't use CGI for that. But anyway, I'm not sure how I got on this.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's our review episode of The Green Knight. So
yeah.
thanks everyone for listening.
Well, Tim, you have to watch it, and maybe because you know about the Green Knight and stuff, maybe you'll like it better and
Yeah, I heard
explain
it
it
is.
to me.
They do take some liberties though with the stories too. So I don't know. Maybe I'll enjoy it for liking the stories of Green Knight and Arthurian Legend, or maybe I won't because it is too different. I hear it's a real artsy type movie. So
Yeah, it is. It is. It is, especially with the font. The font they use for the different chapters. Oh my God.
really,
It's so, yeah, it's like that old England sort of like Gothic style.
see,
You
that
can
actually sounds
barely
kind of
read
cool to
it.
me.
Yeah, I mean it is cool. It is cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, what did that say? but but yeah. Anyway, if Barry Key Barry
Just call him Barry. Barry K.
Barry K is going to be a really, really, really good Joker. Yeah.
Cool. Well, good to know. Well, I guess that covers our takes on all the characters in the movie. And a couple of things before we wrap up, I just want to touch on. It's kind of like the action sequences in the movie. And the fights we got in this movie were cool, but I do have a complaint in that it's not that there wasn't enough of them, because first and foremost, like, this is a detective story. And that's, I think you got to know, not necessarily know going into it, but I think appreciate about it, where maybe if you were disappointed with the action, that's not what the movie is about. It's about solving this mystery and diving into the corruption and the revelations revealed about not only the main prominent people in Gotham, but how it affects Bruce Wayne and his family. Like, that's the core of this movie. But my one complaint about it is that I did feel they showed all like the cool action stuff in the trailers. Obviously, the subway fight, there was more to it, but the biggest moment is what we saw in that first teaser trailer. And then even some of the shots in the Iceberg Lounge and the final fight at that at the location at the end where everyone's gathering to hide from the flood. Or be safe from the flood, I should say. A lot of those shots, like the best shots in there, were in the trailer, and that was a little disappointing. But again, this movie isn't an action movie, so it's not something you should really fault it for if there wasn't enough for you. It had enough to satisfy that, for because it's got to be action in a Batman movie. I mean, that's without question. But I was just hoping for some more cool stuff that we saw in the trailer to be expanded on a little bit, and because one of the things I hate the most is getting too much revealed in a trailer, and then when you see the movie, you're like disappointed that there wasn't more to that cool stuff you saw in the trailer. And I felt that was a little bit of the case with the action sequence, at least the hand-to-hand fighting sequences in the movie. But then you get the Batmobile chase sequence, and that one was a really cool chase sequence that was different than ones we've seen before. And just the build up to it was great, where you just see the engine roar on the Batmobile, and you hear again the music build up, and this seeing the Batmobile roar out and just start chasing the Penguin over the course of the highway, and just how he takes it out. It was just really cool to see. So yeah, the action sequences aren't going to be probably the best you're going to see in a Batman movie, but at the same time, that's not what this movie is about. Again, what you really appreciate about this movie is the story and the character work that went in it, mixed in with a little bit of cool action stuff here and there. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Dane, before I move to the final thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, just say you sound like the people that don't like the movie. Where it's like people are saying it's long, it's too boring. How come? You know, Robert Pattinson's Batman isn't a friendly Batman, or whatever.
Saying that.
Yeah, like I heard, like he's his Batman is cold, and I was like, that's
kind of
the point of the character. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But of course, people are saying it's long and it's boring, and it's not a movie like, because again, I have to reiterate because I feel like people aren't grasping, people that complain that it's too long or it's too boring. I don't think they're understanding that this isn't Star Wars. This is Dune, right? It's not a Marvel movie. It's it's like I said, it's an indie blockbuster. And it's, I don't know, like
it's like
I guess you could go ahead.
I was gonna say at the same time, like, because you could understand where those going into it expecting that. Like, you can understand people going into expecting that because all the Batman movies in the past have, even like the Dark Knight trilogy, they have their big set pieces and action sequences. And this one doesn't. But as Batman fans growing up reading a bunch of different Batman stories, there are ones that aren't a lot of action and are just about story and character work. And we could appreciate that. This is what this movie focused on. But if you're kind of a casual fan who's going in expecting a lot of action because all the other previous Batman movies had that, I can kind of see how you would be thrown for a loop when you go into this one and how it's not really the focal, or there's not really a lot of long action sequences. They're action sequences, but they're not very long. And I could kind of see where someone expecting that maybe would be surprised that it wasn't there when they saw it.
Yeah, you got a point. Yeah, I definitely agree with your point where it's like maybe in this next movie we're gonna get like one take action sequence to make up for it for this movie. But yeah, I can see your point. Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, I mean, how can we not mention it? The music and the score for this movie is incredible. I know I talked about how I listened to it beforehand, but it was made even better when watching the movie.
I am so glad I didn't listen to you and listen to the soundtrack before the movie came out. I listened to it after I saw the movie because it is really, really impressive. It's right up there with Danny Elfman or Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so great. My only knock, like I said, Tim, 50,000 times, just make the Batman theme something in the way. Just make it that. Let's be totally original. Let's not do that, dark brooding thing. Let's just have something in the way to be the official Batman theme. Why not? Right, Tim?
And I would be totally on board with that. And speaking of which, something in the way was used beautifully in the movie at the beginning and at the end, and just how it just totally captured like the theme of what the story Matt Reeves is trying to tell with this version of Batman at the beginning and both at the end. I was curious if it was something that was only going to be used for the trailer, but I'm so glad they used it in the actual movie, and it felt so perfect. And like, it does complement Michael Giacchino's Batman theme very well, I think, both in how it sounds musically and the tone. I think they work really well together as far as fitting together in this movie very nicely. So I was more than pleased to hear something in the way in a Batman movie, and just incorporating Nirvana and Batman. It's just, I could not be happier.
Yeah, like I said, I'm so glad that I didn't listen to it beforehand and I got to experience it in the theater. It's like you said, it's amazing. And plus too, I don't really like to play. I mean, I don't really like to read the novelizations of the movies, or listen to the soundtracks, or play the video games ever since episode 3. The episode 3 video game I played is essentially just the story of episode 3.
Yeah.
Great game. I bought it because I heard that wasn't there like 20 minutes of footage in that game.
Just about, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Like they put actual footage before the movie came out. I think it was like a week or two.
Yep.
Before the movie came out.
I had all files of that downloaded before the game even came out. They leaked it. I was watching those clips over and over again.
But yeah, I'm not one to listen to soundtracks, play the video games, or read the novelizations. And I'm so glad I didn't do it for this movie. I'm so glad I'm not you, Tim.
Well, see, I'm totally that way for everything else except soundtracks. Soundtracks is the only exception where I'll listen to it beforehand because it just makes me more excited for the movie without being spoiled on anything.
Yeah, but you used to read the novelizations of the prequels, right? People when they were coming out.
No, I always read them after. I got them beforehand, but I would read them after.
Oh, okay. I see. Am I crazy, Tim? Please tell me if I'm crazy. Please tell me if I'm totally off base, if I totally got this wrong. But didn't the Revenge of the Sith tie-in video game have an alternate ending?
Yeah, it did. It had it where Anakin beats Obi-Wan.
You kill. No, you kill Palpatine.
Yeah, because right? You defeat Obi-Wan, and then Palpatine comes to Mustafar, and then you end up killing Palpatine.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, for some reason I always remember that, and I thought I was going crazy, Tim. So
no.
Up until this moment, for the past it's almost 20 years now.
Yeah, 17 years.
I thought 17 years. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was absolutely crazy that there was an alternate ending to that game.
No, you're not crazy, Dane. You don't belong in Arkham.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I was just about to check in. I was just about to go to.
I saved you the trip. So
yeah.
So yeah, I guess that about wraps up our discussion on the Batman. And again, like just talking about it, this making me appreciate the stuff I did enjoy in the movie even more. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I might actually see it again today, to be honest. So it's just one of those things where even though I didn't come out of it absolutely loving it, doesn't mean I didn't like it or that it was really good. There's just so many. I got to reiterate this again. There's just so many different Batman stories out there now, and you can even say that just for the movies. We've got so many Batman movies out there now that you're going to have your favorites. Some you're going to like more than others. Some that just can't be touched. That you don't think is going to be surpassed. And for me, that's just The Dark Knight. The Batman did not surpass The Dark Knight for me, and that's totally okay. And it's a totally different type of Batman movie. I'm glad it's there we have a Batman movie that's focused on story and a detective crime mystery. And that's so cool to have in the catalog of Batman films now. And just in case, and even though I just prefer one over the other, doesn't make it any less great or valid to have. So, and even though I might not feel that it's the greatest Batman movie, it's awesome that so many people are feeling that way. And I think that's a feat in itself because, I mean, go back to 2008 where The Dark Knight came out. I felt, and obviously I still feel this way, that it's the pinnacle of comic book movies, Batman movies, and just one of the best movies ever. And there's no way anything's going to top it or even come close. But the fact that it has for so many people that I'm seeing who saw the Batman, that's just awesome. And it just speaks to the character of Batman, just the Batman mythos, and just how many different stories you can tell and have it affect people in different ways to how they can appreciate it on different levels that maybe you can't, but doesn't make it, any less valid that they do. And it's just great to have that variety of Batman movies now that we can pick and choose from for which type of Batman story we want to experience. And before we only had that with comic books. And it's just awesome that we could say that about movies now. We have a bunch of different movies to choose from to get our Batman fix and just be engrossed in a different story, but a story's told for the most part, all well done. Obviously, there's some hit and misses here in the Batman movie catalog, but knowing we're on the streak now of getting some really great ones is just awesome to have. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie, and I'm leaving it open too, where like on multiple viewings, it can move higher as far as my appreciation for coming to actually love it. And maybe not even, maybe it'll never get to the same level as The Dark Knight for me, but that's okay. But to have it as a Batman movie that I just absolutely and truly love, I could totally, I mean, it's not too far away from there now. I mean, saying that I really enjoy it is kind of close to being up to where I absolutely love it. And I think I'm just going to come to appreciate it more, hopefully the more that I do see it. So, yeah, the Batman is here. And I guess if I had to rate it, I guess leaving the theater that night, I would probably give it like a 3.5 out of 5, but I think I'm going to bump it up to a 4 right now. Just talking about it with you and just appreciating the different ways they went about in telling the story, and just thinking about it over the course of the day. And I strongly feel that once I see it again, knowing what I'm in for, just having the movie play out, just having seen it already, it might make the experience for me just enjoying and appreciating it for what it is. So I'm going to bump it up to a 4, like a pre bump up to after seeing it again, which will hopefully be the case. But if I come back after seeing it a second time feeling exactly the same way, maybe I'll go back to that 3.5. But I think I'm going to put it as a 4 for right now.
Yeah, for me, is it better than The Dark Knight? Probably not. No, it's not. Does it have to be? No, it doesn't have to be
Nope,
better than
exactly right.
The Dark Knight. And it's wrong to compare the movies, but talking through everything that we've been talking about, it's hard to not compare the movies. They end the same exact way. If you really think about it, Batman loses, right? And he becomes something else at the end of the movie. So, yeah, if you're going to compare the two, no, it's not better than The Dark Knight, and no, it doesn't have to be. What we got is something unique, something different, something that's totally on its own, really. Maybe, I guess the closest that can come to it is the Joker, but I even feel wrong saying that too.
It's funny, Dane. I actually watched Joker last night, seeing the Batman to move to watch more Batman stuff. And obviously, for continuity reasons, they can't match up for the story they did with Thomas Wayne. But it had the same feel where this could be set in the same universe for like set in the past, like a few decades before the Batman. Just the feel of Gotham is just the look of it. I think if you wanted to, you can make it work that it's in the same universe. Obviously, there's different story points that makes that impossible. But I felt that it just had a little bit of a similar feel to the Batman, where it would make sense if that was a story that took place a few decades before the Batman.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but even then, it's too much of a stretch.
Oh yeah, obviously they're not going to do that. I'm just saying that there were similarities, I think, as far as feel and tone to both of them.
Yeah, but again, I have to hammer home, this is something different. It's something unique. It's actually director driven, like I was saying before. It's a person or a group of people's unique take on the Batman, which is what we need, to be honest, with all of these comic book movies. You got to be unique, right?
Yeah.
That's what we loved about Christopher Nolan, what he did with Batman, that hyper realistic, grounded Batman. That's what we loved about Tim Burton's Batman, where it was more of a fantasy sort of thing. And with this movie, I guess you could say, because we don't know, Tim, I don't know, is there going to be a sequel?
I think it's looking pretty good, but yeah, right now we don't know for sure.
Well, with this movie, it's something different from, Tim Burton or Christopher Nolan or Zack Snyder or whoever you want to say, right? It's something unique and different, and that is what I, at the end of the day, really, really appreciate about it. It's not of the cloth, I guess you could say. It's not a Marvel movie, because you can't be a Marvel movie. This is Batman. This is DC. This is something totally different than what the Marvel people are doing. And the farther you get away from that, and the more you have a unique director, a unique writer, and unique stars that have something to say about the character, that really, really have something to say about the character and want to really develop the character and really care about the character, the more you do that, the better movie you will have. It doesn't work with the Marvel movies. It's contentious. See The Last Jedi. You have a director that has a unique vision that wants to do what he wants to do, and people don't like it. People hate it, in fact.
Some people.
No, Tim, remember what you said. I remember what you said. That episode we reviewed it. That's going to stick in my mind for the rest of my life. And there's nothing you can do or say that'll change that.
But even then, I don't think I said I hated
it. But no, the more unique you get, the more that people that are in the movie, the people that direct the movie, the people that write the movie get to do what they want to do and make what they want to make, the better your product will be. And
yeah,
I am at the end of the day just wowed and amazed by what this movie represents. I honestly can't believe you can make a movie like this. You can make an indie blockbuster and have people like it. It still amazes me. And yeah, I am totally amazed at this movie. I love this movie. We're not comparing it. I'm gonna easily give it 5 out of 5. It's really up there for me. I'd say The Dark Knight and then this movie is my favorite Batman movies. So yeah, that's 5 out of 5 for me.
Cool. Yeah. Glad that you felt that way and so many others have as well, which is just awesome to see. I mean, regardless of my feeling, just knowing that we got a new Batman movie out and it's getting universally praised by almost every Batman fan I've seen. Obviously, there's going to be some who don't. I have seen a few say they hated it, but the majority is just, I don't know. I don't.
For what
really
reason?
I'm not really sure. You're going to have your automatic people who going into it not liking it, still clinging on to Ben Affleck's Batman and the Snyderverse stuff, but that's a whole separate conversation. But it's just great to see that this movie's getting just so well received by so many Batman fans. It's just really great to have a new Batman movie out. Like I said at the beginning, it's been 10 years since we had a solo Batman film, and it's just great to have one. And just kind of selfishly for the podcast, as we talked about, our 10-year anniversary is actually just next month. And the fact that we got a new Batman movie, it was 10 years to the date, is a pretty awesome way to celebrate 10 years of podcasting with you, Dane, about Batman. So just another added little bonus to getting the Batman movie this year is really cool.
So it's almost been 10 years, Tim.
Yeah, I got to look at the exact date for when our first episode came out, but I'm pretty sure it was in April.
Oh, what am I doing with my life, Tim?
10 years well spent, right?
Definitely, Tim. Like I said, this is therapy for us, for me anyway.
And yeah, made even better. We have great stuff to talk about, like a new Batman movie.
Exactly. Even if you hate it, Tim.
See, I knew it. I thought we were going to make it through the whole episode with me not being totally in love with it without you saying I hate it. I was so close.
One more thing. Was your theater packed?
It was full. It was definitely a lot full than when I bought the tickets. Because I remember I was telling you how when I got them, it was like nowhere near the level of like full capacity of what a new Batman or just a tentpole movie would be, but it was pretty full. Maybe not like sold out to kind of how like Spider-Man No Way Home was, but there was hardly an empty seat. There was no good seats left. I'll say that. You had a few kind of down at the bottom, but all the good ones were taken. How about yours?
Yeah, same thing with me. Surprisingly, because there wasn't a lot of people at No Way Home. So I was actually surprised. Again, there were seats there, but I mean, there were seats up front where you have to look directly up to look at an eighth of the screen.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is no way to
but,
experience the movie for the first time.
but yeah, I was surprised that there was quite a bit of people there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. I think it's going to have a pretty good opening weekend too. I think it's like tracking for over 100 million. So,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah, like I said, this is my favorite time for when movies come out. Before like the few weeks leading up to it, and
Oh yeah.
during when the movie's coming out, because you get like all of the clickbaity titles on Twitter. Even though
Have you
I
seen
haven't
any for
really,
the
I mean, I
Batman
didn't.
yet? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think, of course, the one that Robert Pattinson would like to do this comic book based. The next movie should be based on this movie, sort of thing. And dang it, I'm trying to remember. Oh, Matt Reeves explains who the guy at the end was.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen those a lot today even. Yeah.
So you need to that to be explained to you. But
I guess for the real casual audience, maybe, but
yeah,
anyone who's seen a Batman movie or picked up a Batman comic shouldn't need that explained to them.
yeah, I haven't. Well, the problem is I haven't really been on Twitter. I've just been peeking and popping on Twitter, um, just because I needed a break from it. And so like I haven't really been catching the uh, the headlines, the
Mhm.
clickbait headlines. Another one is like 31 things that um, you should know before you go in to
Oh
see the
yeah.
Batman.
They always pick these weird
Uh,
numbers too, like why 31,
yeah,
why 57 or something like
yeah.
that.
I guess they just made it like a random list. Like, oh, before you go into to see the Batman, you should know that shoes that the shoes he's wearing is made out of the supple leather that's only found in the southern part of Italy. That's only manufactured by this company, sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay. I'm not sure I really needed to know the type of leather that was used on the shoes,
But
but
you'll be glad you did when you see the movie. It's going to make it all that much better for you.
like, did you know that Catwoman Selena Kyle's fingernails were manufactured in blah blah blah, and they're a unique style that's native to the region of the world where blah blah blah. Yeah. So yeah, this is my favorite time. You know, we got Obi-Wan coming up. Is the next big thing, right, Tim? Unless I'm missing something.
Oh, well, for me it is. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I can't wait to see the headlines for Obi-Wan. I caught a couple here and there for the Batman, and yeah, they're great. They're useless, and you won't gain anything from them. But I just like seeing them. That's all.
It just enhances the experience for you. It's all part of the fun and the lead up.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, on that fun note, and what to look forward to post the Batman, you can look forward to all those clickbait headlines to increase your enjoyment of the movie, as it does for Dane. Uh, that'll wrap up this episode and our review for the Batman. So, Dane, I'll go and throw it to you for the outro.
All right. Just go over to the BatmanUniverse.net, Facebook.com/Batman Universe, Twitter handles at at Batman Universe. The show's Twitter handles at Bat-Fans Podcast. Tim's Twitter handles at TimG311. I'll say it because
You know what's coming
311
up.
days coming up.
Yes, it is.
311 days coming up. So I'll say it, Tim.
Thank
I'll
you.
say it.
I'll be in Vegas
Um,
enjoying the festivities of 311 Day for 2 nights. It's going to be awesome.
My Twitter handles at Dane Says Banana. Rate and review us on iTunes. And if you want to email the show, the email is at batfansandalpants@gmail.com. So with that, we say at the end of every single episode, Tim, what is it going to be?
We love each and every one of you. was all of our clickbait-related articles for the Batman explaining the material of Robert Pattinson's boots that he wore in the hearts. Almost forgot to add hearts in there. It was so long.
Yeah. It's like, wow, is Tim going to stop? Or should I just... should I walk away?
Just see how long I keep going.
Well, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, everybody, and enjoy the Batman.
Sundies under Gotham, crime alley's a rich boy's tomb. There's the stealing cat, two faces of a coin. Scarecrow's frightened of a clown that's laughing.